So we were talking about Beast Wars is typically about two comedians rewatching the 1990s TV series Beast Wars Transformers. Today, however, April Fools! We are discussing Challenge of the GoBots. Although that too is a children's television show, the podcast itself is not intended for children.
All right, GoBots. Wow, that's a real heel turn, Andy. I didn't expect us to be doing a completely different show for April Fools.
Yeah, I know, especially one that, depending on where your opinions fell in the 80s, you might have considered the GoBots to be an enemy of the Transformers. But before we get into any of that, we need to introduce ourselves. I'm Andy Hunter.
And I'm Phil Thomas, and I've seen precisely one episode of Challenge of the GoBots.
I know I've seen more than that, but I can remember precisely one episode of Challenge of the GoBots, the one that we just watched. For any of our listeners who are not in the US or another place that observes April Fools, April 1st is sometimes a day where you pull harmless pranks on your loved ones and point at them and yell, "April Fools," as you observe the mild distress caused by your prank. And so today, instead of Beast Wars, we're discussing Challenge of the GoBots, Season 1, Episode 1, Battle for Gobotron.
Please don't stop listening to the podcast.
Yes, yeah, next time we will be back with your usual Beast Wars content. Although, if you watched Beast Wars when it originally was coming out in the 90s, I feel like you should be used to long breaks in between new content. Phil, does your memory match this? I feel like there'd be a chunk of 5 episodes, 6 episodes that would get released would be new, and then for months it would just be reruns. We haven't gotten up to it yet, but there was the one we saw often enough that we just started referring to it as the one where they all went blind. Over the course of season 1, I feel like that episode was shown like 4 times or something.
Yeah, I felt like it was the entirety of summer vacation one year for like 3 months in a row. Every week it was the one where they all went blind.
Yeah. So we promise you the delay between your usual "so we were talking about Beast Wars" content will not be quite so long. This is just a one episode break. And hey, send in your ideas for future April Fool's episodes. We've got some ourselves, but we'd love to hear your thoughts. beastwarstalk@gmail.com.
I did have an idea where Andy and I would write an episode of Beast Wars on the fly, and I'm sure you know it would contain all of your favorite Beast Wars bingo moments. So if you want to hear that as a prank, definitely let us know.
Yeah. Or if you'd like us to write it beforehand and actually make it more likely to be funny than us doing it on the fly, you can tell us that too.
Oh, Beast Wars, those episodes write themselves.
So let me give you a little bit of background about GoBots. GoBots, like Transformers, started as a totally different toy line in Japan. Transformers was created by Takara/Tomy in 1980. GoBots started as a toy line produced by Popey, a division of Bandai, in Japan in 1982 under the name Machine Robo. It was brought to the US in 1983 by Tonka, famous for toy trucks. And anybody who is really familiar with Transformers history might recognize that by coming to the US in 1983, GoBots beat Transformers to the US by a year. Transformers toys did not start coming out in the US until 1984.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I thought they were a ripoff of Transformers.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe I sort of remember having as well. I mean, so the toys did come later, or rather, in Japan, the GoBots toys started being produced after the Diaclone toys, which were one of the Transformers lines. In Japan, they're not called Transformers. They're called Diaclones. They're called Microchange, I think. So maybe in Japan, they were seen as a ripoff. Or maybe in Japan. I mean, I think in Japan in general, transforming robots is a broader thing that's not as associated with one specific IP the way it is here in the US. I also, as a kid, had vague thoughts that the show GoBots or Challenge of the GoBots, but always, I think, as a kid, just believed the show to be called GoBots. I also felt like that was a ripoff of the Transformers TV show, but no. The TV show Challenge of the GoBots first aired September 8th, 1984. Transformers began airing September 17th, 1984. So the GoBots TV show also beat Transformers, although in this case only by a couple weeks.
Wow. And yet, very few people relative to Transformers remember the GoBots.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We just watched season 1, episode 1 of Challenge of the GoBots. The episode is called Battle for Gobotron. And it is interesting to see the ways it's different from Transformers. Not that I have super strong memories of the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon, but I know enough to notice some differences. Like, one thing that stood out to me is that in Transformers the cartoon, they would use the medium of animation to cheat the transformations and stuff to make the cars look like real cars and to make their robot forms look like robots without the various transformation kibble and stuff. But in Challenge of the GoBots, they don't do that cheating. Like, all the characters have Lego hands, basically. You can see their robot faces on the underside of the cars. It was really interesting to me that they went with that tactic.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Their transformations are so basic. I think if they wanted to cheat the informations, it would have taken more effort than just animating them straight up. It's like, this rectangle stood up on its two legs and now it's transformed. There you go. It's ready to fight.
Yeah. So one of the characters in Challenge of the GoBots is a character named Turbo, who's a red car on the good guy side of the Guardians. I think I had Turbo as a kid, or at least a very similar looking toy.
Oh.
And in fact, I think I might still have Turbo. It is in severe disrepair at this point. But yeah, it is very much you kind of like unflip the legs and then you fold over the front, and now he's a robot. Although I think the original Transformers toys weren't that much more complicated either. I could be wrong. I don't.
Yeah, maybe the bigger ones were, but I think the smaller ones maybe were not that intricate of a transformation.
Yeah, but so it is interesting. I wonder if that's one of the things that made us as kids feel like GoBots was a ripoff of Transformers. In that, just even in the show, they made them look like less cool toys. Even though I think the toys were probably not really that much worse or anything than Transformers, the show just makes the robots look less cool than Transformers does.
Yeah, the robots were pretty lame looking. I think it's funny that Leader One, who's the proxy for Optimus Prime, looks just like Megatron in robot mode and transforms into a jet like Starscream. And then the Megatron proxy Psykill looks just like Optimus. He's got like blue boot legs, silver thighs, and like a red torso. And he transforms into a motorcycle. And the only way he transforms is he puts a wheel between his feet and a wheel between his hands. That's it. That's the transformation. And then he just kind of rides around like that.
Yeah, if you have ever used one of those pieces of exercise equipment that's just a wheel with a bar and you just are on your knees and you're leaning back and forth, you too have transformed into Psykill.
That's right. Have you ever seen that guy in the streets of Paris who he's on rollerblades, but he has rollerblade wheels on his knees and his elbows and his hands, so he can just kind of do all sorts of Soul Calibur 2 style Valdo moves while he's riding around on the ground? That guy is much more advanced of a transformer than Psykill is.
Yeah. Although, I will say this. If you're a bad guy and you transform into a motorcycle, Psykill is a pretty good name. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, it's pretty on the nose. The same way Hands Cuff is a really good name for a robot that transforms into a
Yeah.
police car.
Yeah. So I did not write down all the characters' names. I did immediately clock. Actually, let's go back. Let's give the audience a brief recap of the show. We start on a robotic planet called Gobotron, where the good guys called Guardians are besieged by the villainous renegades. Eventually, the good guys all rally and surround the bad guys, who then take off in their spaceship headed toward Earth. Initially, the bad guys are talking about, yes, we've got this matter transporter, which it seemed to me like they were just going to teleport to Earth using that matter transporter. So I was really surprised that they then flew to Earth in a spaceship. This episode was part one of, I think, a 5-part opening miniseries or something. So can't blame them for not everything being paid off just yet. But so the bad guys fly to Earth, the good guys give chase. Even though there are large numbers of GoBots on either side, it seems like it's just 3 on each side who end up coming to Earth. There are some astronauts in orbit of Earth repairing a satellite or station, something of that nature. I did immediately clock. The boss astronaut is Commander Hunter. Any relation?
Well done.
Yeah.
Must be.
Must be. It is funny. I'm Jewish on my mom's side of the family, and I'm cartoon on my dad's side of the family.
Yeah, I noticed a resemblance.
Thank you. Yes. They see the villainous renegade ship come in. It just plows through the satellite that they just finished building. They can see it with their eyes, but apparently the bad guys are using a cloaking technology to shield them from radar. So everybody on Earth says, "What are you talking about, UFO? We don't detect anything. You guys are crazy."
Yeah, fake news.
The humans follow the renegades, and then the renegades are like, "We don't want any witnesses." They try to kill the humans, but then luckily the Guardians show up and protect them. And then they take off. The Guardians are like, "Pretend you never saw us." The renegades have also fled. And NASA comes and arrests our hero astronauts and puts them all in suspension. You'd think the shuttle would look like it had been shot by lasers and not just that it had been landed incompetently, but who knows?
Maybe the heat shield protected them.
Oh, maybe.
Mm.
Leader One, the boss of the good guys, the Guardians, shows up at Commander Hunter's house where all 3 of the astronauts are hanging out and says, "Hey, we need your help. One of our guys, Turbo, got shot during that fight and needs a special component." It's not really explained how Leader One knows where they live. It doesn't really matter. But it was just weird and unnerving. They're idly looking through a telescope and suddenly they just see Leader One's face through the telescope. Jeez, man, learn how to knock.
I think Leader One got a notification that an air tag was following him. So he just, followed that air tag back to their place.
Makes sense. One of the 2 younger astronauts goes with the youngest coded GoBot Scooter to a NASA facility to get the component. But then while there, they discover that there are renegades meeting with the clearly villainous Dr. Braxis. So he is the human traitor that Thykill had alluded to. Scooter and I think Nick is the young guy. They had flown up and were spying through a skylight. And I noticed Scooter was on the skylight. And I thought, well, that's, I guess, like a dumb animation mistake. Because clearly that skylight couldn't support a giant robot. But no, I guess it was intentional because then they immediately crash through the window. And we end on a cliffhanger of, will the renegades destroy them? That was egg on my face, thinking that this was just an animation boo-boo, as we are used to from 1980s transforming robot cartoons.
Yeah, the story and the voice work held up 5 to 10% better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
So that was a pleasant surprise for me. Some of the things that I thought were funny during the episode. At one point, what's his name? Psykill tells his first in command, "Hold off the Guardians at all costs." And the guy's like, "Okay, do you want us to use the giant Godzilla robot that we have that would trivialize this whole battle?" And he was like, "No, we can't risk him getting hurt."
At all other costs, though.
Yes, exactly. At all other costs.
Let's see, you mentioned the voice work. I will mention a couple cast members whose names I recognized from other things. Rene Auberjonois, he's been in a bunch of stuff. He had a wide range of voice work. He also played Odo on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So that's where I most know him. He played Dr. Braxis, the traitorous human.
Well done.
Brock Peters, who also had a guest role a handful of times on Deep Space Nine as Captain Sisko's dad. He played the General Newcastle, who put the astronauts on the suspension. Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, played somebody named Tank, who I guess was some rando on Gobotron. I did not catch who Tank was. But Scooter, who has a very Waspinator-like voice, obviously, a decade before Waspinator, was played by Frank Welker, the voice acting legend. Transformers fans will know him as the voice of Megatron. He also had been the voice of Fred in Scooby-Doo and Bobby Drake Iceman in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Nibbler in Futurama, and Abu in Aladdin. He's got an IMDb page that just goes on forever.
I did not realize that. And that makes sense because I thought the voice acting of that character was pretty good.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me, compared to Transformers and even early Beast Wars, this show had more female characters. One of the astronauts is a woman, and one of the villainous renegades, Crasher, is female.
Yeah, that was good. There was a human female. There were two human characters of color, too. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. When you said that the story held up 5 to 10% better than you were expecting, I might say it held up 50% better than I was expecting. Because I haven't watched Generation 1 Transformers in at least 10 years, maybe 15 years. But I remember years and years and years ago, you and I tried to watch the opening multi-part series of episodes of Transformers. And after the first episode, we were like, no, I gotta tap out.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not eager to watch episode 2 of Challenge of the GoBots, but I don't feel a strong need to not watch it the way I had felt in that one moment about not watching Transformers.
Yeah, I come away from the episode with a much more positive opinion of GoBots. I thought GoBots was like an abomination in all phases. But after watching it, I was like, oh, that's fine. That was a fine episode of 80s children's TV. I thought that was probably in the top half as opposed to the bottom half. So it was an above average episode, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say its biggest sin is just that it does not make the robots look cool.
Yeah.
And for a show that is like Transformers, essentially a toy commercial, if you're not making the toys look cool, you're not doing your job, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which is not a writing issue, it's an artistic issue. Also, though, here's something that neither the writing nor the animation really answered this question for me. All of the GoBots can fly in their robot forms. And it seems like, for the most part, they can shoot their weapons in either robot or vehicle form. So it was never really clear to me why they needed to, at points, transform into their vehicle forms in the first place. And I think Leader 1, it seems like when he transforms into a jet, he's maybe able to like fire some boosters and go faster. But in the beginning of the episode, the Renegades have stolen something and they're flying away. And then they transform into two cars and a helicopter. And they don't seem to be going any faster than they were when they were flying, but we got to advertise that the toys can transform.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Also, why are they transforming into Earth vehicles before they've ever gotten to Earth? Why are these convenient forms for them to be on their home planet?
Yeah, and it's not even like, oh, it's a car that could be a human car, like, I guess, Turbo, you could say. All right, I guess although he does still have, a human fitting interior that looks like the interior of a car. But there's also a car, like you said, Cuff or Hans Cuff, whatever his name is, who just transforms into a police car. There's no way to call that a generic vehicle. It specifically looks like a police car.
And an 80s police car.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to mention in the tiny amount of research I did do. Maybe this gets explained in one of the later parts of this opening 5-part episode. Here's a weird bit of world building. Unlike the Transformers, who are just natively robots, apparently on Gobotron, thousands of years ago, there was a race of human-like organic beings called Go beings. But then Civil War erupted when a power-hungry terrorist group called the Renegades arose and waged war on the peaceful Guardians. When Renegade sabotage inadvertently resulted in a gigantic asteroid colliding with Gobotron, the natural disasters that resulted pushed the Go beings to the verge of extinction. A genius Go being called the Last Engineer saved his people by transplanting their brains into mechanical transforming bodies. and thus they all became the GoBots.
Okay. Well, that's a little more of a meaty backstory than the Transformers.
Yeah, well, I mean, Transformers would eventually go on in various, I think maybe mostly comic books, various media to say there was a Primus who created the Allspark, maybe, or maybe is the Allspark, or the Matrix, and that's somehow dot 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 brought life to Cybertron. I'm not super clear. Feel free to write in if you want, folks, but I'm not super knowledgeable about all that. But yeah, that was interesting, and it's not touched on at all here. So yeah, I don't know if at one point in this opening 5-part miniseries, if one of the GoBots will explain that to one of the humans, or if that was revealed way later in the show. I don't know.
I guess we'll never find out.
Yeah, if you're a big GoBot head, feel free to write in and let us know. If you've got a must-watch episode of GoBots you'd recommend, feel free to send it our way. Maybe I'll check it out. I feel confident Phil is not interested in seeing anymore.
Well, if our listeners are adamant enough, maybe we'll have to give something a watch.
Yeah. But otherwise, our plan is keep on going with Beast Wars. We still have like 40 episodes of Beast Wars to go. So, and at our pace, that's a few years still. So.
Yeah, 40 episodes to go, and that's just season 1. Do you want to play a little Beast Wars bingo?
Oh, sure.
Okay. There were no bullet train montages. There was no one hanging precariously. There were no animals looking to the sky. There was no Optimus body horror moment. I couldn't really tell if there were any inconsistent weapon power moments. Surprising consistency from the lasers coming from their hands. I did not see a stolen catchphrase, although I really did expect to have some sort of reference to Transformers. But the closest thing they said was that somebody made an astounding conversion.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, it sounds like they put that in because a lawyer said so. As far as maximize and terrorize, how many times do you think maximize was said, and how many times do you think terrorize was said?
I'm gonna say I think maximize was said 0, and I think terrorize was said I'm gonna say twice.
Pretty close, and you usually do a good job at this. Sometimes I feel like you're actually secretly counting during the episode and not telling me so you can win this game. Maximize was indeed not said any times in the episode, and terrorize, although it did sound almost like it was said twice, it was actually said 0 times.
Can't win them all. Regarding the inconsistency for the weapons, yeah, like I think you're right. I think we only see GoBots get hit with weapons twice, and both times it does kind of take them out. Unlike in Beast Wars, where people will get hit all the time, and sometimes one hit will take them out, and sometimes 50 hits don't really take them out. That said, most of these characters had very, very bad aim. Like there were I'm going to say 200 shots fired in this episode and 2 of them connected.
Maybe they're really actually scared to hit each other.
Yeah. You're right that there were no animals looking up into the sky, but there were some astronauts looking up. Do you think that counts?
Okay, I'll give you that one.
Here we go. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe, rate the podcast, spread the word. Reach out to us at beastwarstalk@gmail.com, especially if you have a question for... Oh. Wait, I just realized I don't think we told Aptimus that this time we weren't talking about Beast Wars.
Hey, what's going on? I saw that there was a recording here on my calendar, but I didn't see what episode we're watching. What's my brother in Apehood, Optimus Primo, going on about today?
So, like, I talked this over with your agent. We're actually talking about a different show, and he said we would have to renegotiate your hourly rates if we didn't do something that was tangential to cybernetic apes or bananas.
No bananas, no apes. I'm Optimus Prime. Those are the two things I'm famous for caring about, apes and bananas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Aptimus. I think there was a miscommunication somewhere.
Well, did you talk about anything good, at least?
From an Aptimus standard? Like, as far as ape shit or bullshit, I don't know if this is an episode you would go ape shit for, Aptimus.
Yeah, honestly, Aptimus, I think you might look at the robots in Challenge of the GoBots and think that they're bullshit.
All right, fair enough. Oh well. Anyway, I just got this book from the library. I think I'm gonna go lounge outside under the moonlight, read, and then who knows? maybe something will occur in the sky that will cause me to look up in wonder.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds really fulfilling. Yeah, enjoy that, Optimus.
Wow, this really was an April Fool's episode.
So, yes, if you have a question for Aptimus, send it to beastwarstalk@gmail.com and he will answer it on the show. Until next time, I'm Andy Hunter.
I'm Phil Thomas.
And now we have talked about GoBots.